Vive le Christ roi!
Operation Suicide. The Society of St. Pius X's pact with Modernist Rome. St. Gregory the Great warns us in his homilies on Ezekiel. Hence it is said by the prophet, "Dumb dogs not able to bark." Isaiah 56:10. These are indeed the pastors who by their silence cause the death of those who might have been saved. If priests are the watchdogs of the flock, then as a mere layman, I am but a barnyard rooster crowing in the distance. I have pledged my labor for the triumph of the rights of God and His Church, standing only at the mercy of our Lord, striving to be a militant servant of the Blessed Virgin. Why? Because today, the German shepherds have been silenced. Some muzzled, others both muzzled and neutered. Some remain unchained, but wear shock collars, ensuring they never stray beyond permitted territory. In certain places, shepherds have been replaced with house cats that merely meow. Yet amid the silence, a few voices remain. In the USA, Father Hugo, a true German shepherd, ever watchful. And in Mexico, Father Ruiz, standing firm. In the Philippines, Father Chazal, a formidable watchdog, yet restrained by his shock collar. The silence of the clergy has left the faithful defenseless against the wolves. That is why I attempt, in my small way, to echo the true resistance, those who laid the foundation of our fight against modernism. Archbishop Marcel Lefebvre, the great lion of Catholic tradition, Bishop Antonio de Castro-Mayor, his faithful ally who stood firm in Brazil, Father Denis Fahey, who exposed the forces working to dismantle Christendom long before the crisis of Vatican II, and from those who followed after, Bishop Richard Williamson and Bishop Tissier, in their better days when they held the line without wavering. Bishop Bellini, who continues to resist with signs of further awakening. I also extend my gratitude to the Recusant and the Catacombs.org, two vital repositories of truth that the enemies of tradition seek to erase from history. Who am I? A good question. I am nobody. A mere servant, striving for the triumph of Christ the King and the Immaculate Heart of Mary. But when those entrusted with the truth remain silent, what choice does a servant have but to speak? Yet let me be clear about one thing. One mortal sin left unrepented is enough to damn a soul to hell. That is the fate of any man, bishop, priest, or layman alike. And I know that I am far worse than any of these men. I am a sinner in desperate need of God's mercy. I pray for them. I pray that those who have compromised will return to the truth, that they will renounce error and once again stand firm. I would lay my life down for these bishops and priests, but I want them to start barking again. And this is war. Not a war of pride, ambition, or personal grievance, but a war for souls. A war against the modernist infiltration that seeks to destroy tradition from within. And so, with full charity, but without compromise, let us speak plainly. What if I told you that the Society of St. Pius X, the very group founded to resist modernist Rome, was betrayed from within in 2012? What if I told you that its leadership compromised with the very Rome that Archbishop Lefebvre condemned, not through open defiance, but through a subtle, deliberate, and carefully orchestrated deception? What if I told you that the betrayal is not a theory, not an opinion, but a provable fact, backed by their own official documents, Vatican statements, and of course the law of non-contradiction? You would have a choice. You could turn away, pretending nothing happened, just as many have done or you could face the truth no matter how unsettling it may be. The purpose of this expose is to expose beyond all doubt the undeniable betrayal of the SSPX in 2012, to prove with irrefutable evidence that the SSPX is now controlled opposition, to show faithful Catholics what they must do next. If you care about the truth, if you care about the survival of tradition, of eternal Rome, then listen carefully. Because once you hear what follows, there is no going back. To understand the magnitude of the 2012 betrayal, we must first establish what the SSPX was meant to be, before its leadership betrayed its mission. From its founding in 1970, the Society of St. Pius X existed for one reason: to hold fast to eternal Rome, the Rome of tradition, not the Rome of modernism. Archbishop Marcel Lefebvre made his position unmistakably clear. In 1974, he wrote, "We adhere with all our heart and all our soul to Catholic Rome, guardian of the Catholic faith, but we refuse and have always refused to follow the Rome of neo-modernist and neo-Protestant tendencies." For decades, Lefebvre fought tirelessly against the conciliar revolution. He categorically rejected Vatican II, condemned the new Mass as a poison rite, and warned against seeking any agreement with modernist Rome. When Rome pressured him to compromise, he stood firm. In 1988, when offered a deal with the Vatican, he walked away and consecrated bishops without permission, declaring, "If I had signed, I would have signed my condemnation." On June 30th, 1988, the day of the episcopal consecrations, Lefebvre made his position even clearer. Today, this day, is Operation Survival. If I had made this deal with Rome, by continuing with the agreements we had signed, and by putting them into practice, I would have performed Operation Suicide. In 1989, he issued an even stronger warning. Do not have a point of contact with the one who is in charge of destroying tradition. They don't know what to do to divide us and are surprised at so much resistance. They seem not to understand that it is a problem of faith from the beginning. That was the SSPX before 2012. That was true resistance. But what follows? That is the story of its betrayal. GREC, the hidden betrayal that led to SSPX's fall. Few Catholics realize that the SSPX's downfall did not begin in 2012. The seeds of betrayal were planted long before, in a secretive backroom operation known as GREC. What was GREC? The Groupe de Réflexion entre Catholiques was a clandestine think tank founded in 1997 with the explicit goal of reconciling the SSPX with modernist Rome, without Rome first converting. Its founders included Mrs. Perrault, widow of the former French ambassador to the Vatican, Father Michael Lalonde, a vocal advocate of Vatican II and interreligious dialogue, Father Olivier de la Brosse, former spokesman for the French Bishops' Conference, Father Alain Laurence, SSPX, the Society's own Director of Communications, acting with Bishop Fallet's knowledge and approval. Their mission? To gradually shift the SSPX towards accepting Vatican II under the guise of reconciliation. Key GREC Principles. The following are drawn from their own writings. Work for reconciliation between SSPX and modernist Rome. Present Vatican II errors as theological options rather than outright heresies. Avoid confrontation with conciliar bishops to foster dialogue. Promote the illusion that truth unites us deeply, despite doctrinal contradictions. Encourage trust in modernist Rome's willingness to restore tradition. This Masonic-style method of gradual compromise mirrors how modernism infiltrated the church through the ecumenical movement, a deliberate effort to disarm Catholic resistance from within. The SSPX's leadership's role in GREC. While Archbishop Lefebvre categorically rejected any agreement with modernist Rome, his successors did the opposite. Bishop Fallet was fully aware of GREC's activities. Father Laurence, SSPX, actively participated, serving as the Society's key representative. For over a decade, secret meetings were held and reports were sent to Rome. The faithful were never informed. GREC was only exposed publicly in 2011. This was an intentional effort to engineer an eventual submission to modernist Rome, not an accident. Archbishop Lefebvre foresaw this exact danger. In 1986, Archbishop Lefebvre issued a clear warning. Betting on an agreement with the Pope is an illusion. The Pope will grant us everything we want on the disciplinary and liturgical level, but on the condition of admitting his modernist ideas about religious freedom and ecumenism, that is, of our Catholic faith, the fulfillment of Lefebvre's prophecy. Lefebvre's warning was not speculation, it was prophetic clarity. GREC's method was to convince the SSPX that reconciliation was possible without Rome renouncing modernism. In 2012, this plan reached its fulfillment when Bishop Lefebvre signed the Doctrinal Declaration, which we will now expose shortly. Catalog of compromise, change, and contradiction in the SSPX. Archbishop Lefebvre's warning in 1988. We must not be taken in by deceivers. Rome has lost the faith. Rome is in apostasy. This is not an exaggeration, it is the truth. Rome is in apostasy. They cannot be trusted. For over 2 decades, the Society of St. Pius X has undergone a radical transformation. No longer the bulwark against modernist Rome that Archbishop Lefebvre envisioned. It has become controlled opposition, gradually surrendering to the very forces it was founded to resist. Below are the most damning contradictions and compromises that demonstrate the SSPX's betrayal of its founding principles, outside of the 2012 Doctrinal Declaration, which will be analyzed in our later section. These documented changes, drawn from official SSPX statements, policies, and actions, prove beyond a doubt that the SSPX leadership has abandoned the fight for tradition. Number 1, the push for a practical agreement with modernist Rome. Archbishop Lefebvre in 1988. They have remained modernists. They have changed nothing. It is we who must change our positions. That is what they want. They want to bring us back to Vatican II. Bishop Lefebvre in 2012. We are no longer in the days when we are fighting to keep the faith. Rome has changed. Rome has improved its perception of tradition. What happened? The SSPX leadership actively pursued reconciliation with modernist Rome, even though Rome remained fully committed to Vatican II. Secret doctrinal talks were held with conciliar prelates to lay the groundwork for a deal. The SSPX accepted canonical recognition in 2017, contradicting Lefebvre's warnings. Rome never renounced Vatican II, yet the SSPX pretended otherwise to justify its actions. This directly contradicted Lefebvre's unshakable stance. Rome must first return to tradition before any discussion of a canonical agreement could even begin. Number 2, the SSPX accepted modernist bishops' authority over its marriages. Here's Archbishop Lefebvre in 1988. We must not place ourselves under an authority whose ideas are liberal and who little by little will condemn us, because we will necessarily be obliged to reduce the dose of tradition in order to remain in agreement with them. Now hear the 2017 SSPX statement on marriage. Following Pope Francis' decision, Society of St. Pius X priests may licitly receive the delegation necessary to validly witness marriages of faithful who attend their chapels. Why is this a major betrayal? The SSPX now submits its marriages to diocesan bishops, the very bishops Lefebvre refused to obey because of their modernist errors. Novus Ordo clergy now have authority over SSPX marriages. This concession legitimizes the authority of Vatican II bishops, one of the very few things Archbishop Lefebvre spent his life resisting. Number 3, the SSPX recognized Novus Ordo confessions as licit and valid. Archbishop Lefebvre, the new conciliar priest, even if they say the Tridentine Mass, remain modernist because they were formed in a modernist way. Now let's hear the 2015 SSPX statement on confessions. The Society of St. Pius X thanks Pope Francis for allowing faithful to approach our priest for confession, recognizing the validity of our sacrament. What does this mean? The SSPX leadership accepted Pope Francis' decree recognizing SSPX confessions. By accepting the decree, the SSPX implicitly acknowledged the authority of modernist Rome over its sacraments. This sets a dangerous precedent. The SSPX is no longer acting independently, but is increasingly dependent on conciliar approval. Lefebvre would have never accepted modernist Rome's permission for sacraments that are already valid by divine right. Number 4, expulsions of resistance clergy for opposing the sellout. Archbishop Lefebvre in 1989. We must fight against this influence of liberalism within this society. What happened? Bishop Williamson expelled in 2012 for rejecting the practical agreement. Dozens and dozens of priests forced out for remaining faithful to Lefebvre's principles. Priests pressured to accept the new orientation or face removal. Instead of fighting modernist Rome, SSPX leadership focused on purging its own ranks of clergy who refused to compromise. This mirrors the conciliar church's methods, not the SSPX of Archbishop Lefebvre. Number 5, silence and compromise on Vatican II errors. Archbishop Lefebvre said in 1976, "This council represents a new church which is not the Catholic Church." Now hear from the SSPX General Chapter in 2012. We recognize that Vatican II is part of the magisterium of the Church and must be understood in light of tradition. What happened? The Society of St. Pius X leaders stopped condemning Vatican II as a rupture. They no longer publicly call it a heresy or outright error. Bishop Lefebvre openly stated that Vatican II must be interpreted correctly. Instead of outright rejecting Vatican II, the SSPX now echoes the modernist hierarchy, treating it as something that merely needs proper interpretation rather than condemnation. The final verdict? The SSPX is controlled opposition. Archbishop Lefebvre in 1988. If one day they shall grant us what we ask, it will be with the intention of making us accept what we refuse. This is why faithful Catholics must separate from the neo-SSPX and support the true Catholic resistance.
In the name of Christ we march as one, under the banner of the Holy Son. Gloria in excelsis Deo, Gloria in the highest, per Dominum nostrum Jesum Christum. Amen. Fruados ascendimus cum fide pura, pro gloria Dei semper dura. For the name of Christ we march as one, under the banner of the Holy Son.